Have you ever wanted to make a difference in the world, but you didn't know what to do or where to start? But by the end of this video, I'll let you know how you can begin to make a difference in the world. Hey, if you're new here on the channel, my name is Chris, and I'm so excited that you're jumping in on this video with us. The last couple of videos, we've been talking about making a difference in the communities that we live, wherever we live. And we've been talking about that through serving, through giving. And in this video, we're gonna wrap it up through talking about how we can love our community. Now, maybe a year or so ago, I was actually driving along this road on the way to actually speak at one of our physical services, and it was early in the morning, and I remember noticing someone off the side of the road with their face kind of turned away, their hood was up, and I just kind of thought, like, that's a bit odd, but surely someone else will take care of it. And I turned down one of the other roads, and I kept thinking to myself, like, nah, Chris, you really should go back and check. And so I went back and I had a look, and I pulled out off across the side of the road, and I wound my window down, and I was like, hey, called to the person, hey, are you okay? And I remember they turned around to me and they said some expletives, and then they said, like, of course I'm okay. Like, as if that was such an illogical question that I asked if they were okay. And then I said to them, I was like, do you need a ride? And they were like, does it look like I need a ride? And in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, actually it kind of does. You're sitting in a gutter at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It kind of looks like you need a ride. And then they swore at me again and told me to leave. And so I drove off, and it actually kind of affected me in a weird way, because for the next little while, every single time I was tempted to help someone or saw someone in need, there was always this thing in the back of my mind of like, if you offer to help, will you really make a difference? Or maybe someone else will come along this time. And I don't know if you've ever felt that in your life, where you've been tempted to help, but you've thought, oh, I'm not gonna make a difference. Or you've seen a scenario and you're just thinking to yourself, someone else will come along and they'll do something about it. And there's this really interesting moment in the life of Jesus where he actually addresses this tension and what we can do in our life when we're tempted to think that what we'll do won't make a difference, or that someone else will take up the slack. And this moment happens when a religious expert comes up to him and he asks him this really weird question. It's like, hey, Jesus, who is my neighbor? And Jesus, because he's Jesus, he knew that there was a question behind the question. And really what we discover through this dialogue is that the religious expert wanted to justify some of his actions. In other words, he wanted to be able to say to one group of people who are his people, like, I'm allowed to treat you the way I wanted to treat you. But this group over here, I can treat them with disdain, I can treat them with contempt, I can be racist towards them, pick whatever adjective you want. And so Jesus then begins to tell his story. And he tells a story about a man who is traveling on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. And he gets robbed. And his clothes are stolen, because clothes were really quite valuable in the first century. If you mugged someone, you'd take their clothes and sell them on. And then two religious leaders walk past this man who's lying half dead on the side of the road, and neither of them do anything. And then a Samaritan walks past, and maybe you've heard of someone being a good Samaritan. It's an idiom, but this is where that comes from, which is just incredible to think that 2,000 years ago, Jesus told a story and that's permeated our culture in such a way. But here's what you need to know. The Jews and the Samaritans, they had institutionalized racism against each other. That's the simplest way to put it. They hated each other, they treated each other in certain ways. It was some ways very similar to the apartheid in South Africa. But this Samaritan comes along, and then he bandages the man's wounds, and then he takes him to an inn. He puts the Jewish man on his donkey and he walks. And then on top of that, he actually pays the innkeeper money to look after this Jewish man. And then, as if that's not enough, he says, hey, if what I've given you isn't enough, I'm gonna come back later and you let me know if there's anything more. And in this story, Jesus did something that we just take for granted, but was brand new when Jesus told this story. Because what Jesus did effectively was redefine neighbor for everyone of every nation and every generation. See, the Samaritan in the story was a neighbor not because he did anything exceptional, not because he did anything that you or I couldn't do ourselves. He was a neighbor because he saw a need and met a need. And maybe 50 or 60 years ago, it was less challenging for us to see a need and meet a need, because the needs that we were seeing were just the immediate needs of family or people in our local communities. But the reality is we are so overwhelmed with the needs of the world at the moment. We can see tribal wars in Afghanistan. We can see civil unrest in Africa. We can hear about live updates from the G20 summit and climate change as they're happening. And it can seem just so overwhelming to think, hey, there's no way that I could possibly make a difference. And if you've ever felt that way, because I know I have, here's what you can do. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Do for one friend. Do for one charity organization. Mentor one person in the way that you wish you could do it for everyone. And I know there'll be some of you that think to yourself, is it really fair that I just give money to one charitable organization when there's so many good ones? Or is it really fair that I only mentor one high school student when there's so many that need mentoring? The reality is that it's actually not your responsibility to change everyone's world. It's not your responsibility to change the whole world. But here's the thing. The Samaritan, who was a good neighbor, he did for one what he wished he could do for everyone. And so here's my challenge for you this week. Simply do that. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Because if you do that, then you will change someone's world. Hey guys, thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you did like it, why not give it a thumbs up and subscribe? And if you want to help us make a massive difference in our local community this year, click the Be Rich link in the bio to find out how you can do that.